All right, today we're doing 1.3 midpoints. So you don't have to write this down, but let's answer this. I'm going to call people. Okay. So Roman, answer number 1 for me. Point Z. Okay. Paula, number 2. Line DB. Mateo, line number 3. Ray CQ. Chris, number 4. Segment OT. And Brady, number 5. Line U. Okay. Very good, guys. Everybody got it right. Any questions on that? All right. So, today we're talking about midpoint. When you hear the word midpoint, what word comes to mind? Middle. Okay. So middle's always in the center, right? It divides it in 2. So that's what our midpoint does. It literally divides the segment into 2 congruent segments. And I put there in your notes that congruent means equal. Okay, for our purposes in geometry, if it says it's congruent, it's basically like saying it's equal with it, with whatever. Okay? So if this segment and this segment are congruent, they're going to have the same length. So remember, we talked about it last week just briefly, but make note that these little tick marks, whoops, represent, man, I can't write, congruency. Okay? Those tick marks represent congruency, meaning that, like, if you see those tick marks, it's saying this one, this segment, and this segment are congruent with each other. They're the same length as each other. Okay? Anytime you see the tick marks. So in this case, M is the midpoint of segment AB. So that means that AM, segment AM, and segment MB are congruent with each other. They're the same length. Okay? Does anybody remember if I have like AM with no symbol, what do they want between those 2 points? The what? The distance between the 2 points, okay? So if it doesn't have a symbol and just says AM, that means I want the distance from A to M. So that's what it says here is the distance from A to M is congruent to the distance to M to B. All right, next one. The segment bisector. This can be a point, a line, a ray, a segment, a plane, anything we've talked about up to this point. And what it's going to be, it's going to be right in the center. And it's going to divide it in 2. Okay? It literally cuts it in half. So, if I cut something in half, that means that each side's congruent with the other one. The prefix bi on bisector. What does that prefix bi mean? 2. Okay? So think about bicycle. 2 wheels, right? Okay? That's what. So the prefix bi means 2. So if I have bisector, it cuts it into 2 congruent parts, 2 congruent segments. So in this case, this line right here is my segment bisector. It cuts this segment AB into 2 equal parts, this side and this side. So we call that the segment bisector. Everybody say that.
The segment bisector.
Segment bisector, very good. Okay. So for our purposes, they'll tell you like name what the segment bisector is. So if it's a line, you say like line and your 2 points or your creeper letter. Okay? If it's a segment, name the segment, and so on. All right, write this one down. So class, this says find the segment bisector and find RS. How many answers am I going to have on this one? 2. Okay, we got to tell them the segment bisector. Then we got to find what RS is. So let's do this. First thing we want to do is a segment bisector. Segment bisector. And we need to name what that is. So in this case, this is it right here. Notice we know this is it right here because each side is congruent on each side of it, right? It's got the little tick marks. So if each segment's congruent on each side, we know that one's cutting it right in half. Now, where do I leave off? Jules, What is this segment bisector? Is it like a line, a ray, a point? What is it? It's a ray. Very good, because it's got a point on one, it's got an end point, and it goes on forever in the other direction. Okay? So I know that this is a ray. Now, Angie, what point do I start with when I name the ray? Which one am I going to start with, M or A? Which one? Nope, well, we start with the end point. Which one's on the end? M. So you want to start with M, and then the second letter is going to be what? A. So ray MA. Remember, when you name a ray, you always start with the end point, the starting point. In this case, it's M, and then it goes through A. Now, you could have put the symbol. You could have said MA with the symbol on the top. Questions on that part? All right, next. It said find RS. What am I looking for there, Mandy, when it wants just RS with no symbols? Yep, the length of it, right? So we're looking for length. So I need to find what RS equals. Now notice, guys, on this side it's 9. What do you think the other side's going to be? 9. Because they're congruent on both sides, right?
Yes.
So if each side is 9,
18.
and then I need to find R to S, what do I do with those two 9s?
Add them together.
Add them together. So RS is equal to 9 plus 9. So RS equals how much? 18. Okay. So yeah, just two answers on this one, segment bisector and the length between J and M. All right, so first one, let's do the segment bisector. Just remember, this is my bisector. The one that's right in the middle, it's cutting it in half. Caden. Is that bisector? Is it a point? Is it a line? Is it a ray? What is that? It's a line. Okay. Class, what do we name this one?
Line L.
Line L. Why do I not call it line ML?
Because your L is just a creeper.
The L is a creeper. We don't mix a creeper with the normal letter, right? Nobody wants to hang out with the creep. Okay. Don't force M to hang out with that creeper letter L. Okay. So, segment bisector, which this is it right here, is line L. All right, first part's done. Hopefully I'll at least get that part. You got one out of the two parts done. All right, hold on to your hats. This is going to get a little complicated. If you're good at algebra, it won't be. If you're struggling, it's going to be tough. So, let's write these two steps down to solve this. First one is we need to solve for x. Second one is we're going to plug in x. Solve for x and plug in x. All right. This is a bisector, so it cuts it in what?
2.
In half, right? Okay, it is 2, but I'm looking for half. Okay, so it cuts it in half. Each side is congruent. So if it's congruent, I know that 3x plus 15 on this side is equal to 8x plus 25, right? So what I need to do is I need to set those equal to each other. So the first step is we're going to solve for x, and we're going to say 3x plus 15, and we have 8x plus 25. But we said they equaled each other, right? So put an equal sign between them. That makes logical sense, right? They equal each other. Put an equal sign. Okay. Now that we have it set up as an equation, we can figure out what x is. Okay, we got to just get it by itself. So do y'all want to move the x's to the left or to the right? Okay, I heard the left first. Either way will work. So I need to move that 8x to the right. I'm sorry, to the left. So I'm going to subtract it, right? Subtract from one side, and whatever you do from the other, one you have to do on the other. And then I'm going to bring the 15 down and the 25. 3x minus 8x is how much?
Negative 5.
-5. And with our x, and then bring 15 down. And then bring our 25, positive 25 down. What's the next step?
Minus 15.
So we want to subtract that 15 from both sides, right? We're trying to get everything away from x. Then we're going to bring that negative 5x down. 25 minus 15.
10.
10. Now what's the last step?
Divided by -5.
Divided by -5, because I need to separate that -5 from the x and bring it to the other side. So x equals how much? Positive or -2? Negative, because you're dividing a positive and a negative. Whoops, I'm sorry, don't box it yet. We're not finished. All right, that was just step 1, right? Now we need to do step 2. We're going to plug in for x. Okay. So what I need to do is I need to take one of these equations, 3x plus 15 or 8x plus 25. Doesn't matter which one you pick, but pick one and plug in for it. Because then it'll tell us, once we plug it in, how much that side equals. And if you figure out how much that side equals, you know what the other one automatically is, right? So you don't have to plug in for both. You only have to find one, and if they're congruent, they're going to be equal to each other, right? So it told me to find JM. Is JM all the way across or is halfway? Halfway. I'm just going to use the 3x plus 15 because we're looking for JM, and that's what it is. 3x plus 15. And what I want to do is take that -2, draw an arrow, and I want to plug it in for x. Okay, I'm going to give x a value. Because if it has a value, then we can solve it out and figure out what it is. So that 3 and the x, what are they doing? Are they multiplying, dividing, subtracting, or adding? Multiplying. So I'm going to say 3 times -2. Remember, a parentheses next to a number just means multiplying. Plus 15. Okay, we got to do our order of operations, and you always multiply first. So 3 times -2 is how much? -6.
Yeah.
Plus the 15. Now I just got to combine these. When I'm combining a negative and a positive, what do I do with the two numbers? Subtract them. 15 minus 6 is how much? 9. And is it positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive, because the bigger number is positive, right? So JM equals 9. All right, real quick though. Is it okay if I get a negative number here? Think about this. Could I ever have JM equals negative something? What is JM representing? What are we finding? Well, no, specifically JM without a symbol is telling me we're finding what? Distance or length. Can length ever be negative? No. So if you ever get a negative length at the end, you know that you messed up on something. Okay? Sound good? All right.